Welcome back to the Blister and Muck podcast. I'm Jenny Mason, your host and the creator of the Blister and Muck series. Saddle up! This week the villains are champing at the bit to trot out an evil scheme. And it's possible at least one of them is not horsing around. As you may recall, Blister, Muck, Madame Putresca, plus a team of opeRATives were just about to liberate the mistreated circus animals when Dr. Van Sangfreud and Vexler Q Drummal interrupted. If you ask me, we need to take a cold, hard look at their partnership. For instance, have these two fiends collaborated for a long time, or is their association more spur of the moment? Either way, we left our heroes in the midst of an unstable situation. Heroes and villains make for uneasy neighbors. Both sides are always jockeying for victory. And you know full well the rats won't stand by while Dr. Van Sangfreud deploys the sinister plan he's been sinisterly planning all this time. When he least expects it, they'll hoof to intervene. My producers are urging me to rein in these pony puns. However, if they think I'm going to buck tradition now, they're definitely mustangin'. I don't mean to stir up trouble. I just think it'd be erroneous to not prepare you listeners for the marathon action and unbridled combat coming your way. Episode 6. Doctor's Orders. The cats adhered to Dr. Van Sangfreud's shins. They swiped their cheeks and sides against his legs. Their bodies turned to taffy, all stretch and curl. Their collective purring hummed almost as loud as the electric generators powering the circus lights. Good work, my beautifuls, my beautiful beauties. The doctor crooned at the cats as he stooped to pet them. Are you my bitties? Are you my itty-bitties? Are you my itty-bitty kitties? My itty-bitty kitty committee? Van Sangfreud cooed and chuckled and caressed the cats until Vexler chuffed at him. Doctor. Yes. But I'm so pleased with my beauties. They have done what I have failed to do for weeks. Unless I am mistaken, I believe they have finally trapped Madame Putresca. Blister was aghast. Muck clamped a paw over his mouth to stifle a gasp. Madame Putresca's shock shifted into a combative frown. Dr. Van Sangfreud snapped his fingers, and the cats reformed their blockade. You see, Mr. Drummal, we have a celebrity in our midst, Dr. Van Sangfreud called out across the stalls. Isn't that right, Madame Putresca? That's right. I know you're here. How could you resist? All these poor creatures in shackles and cages. I couldn't resist either. With a stiff swish of his cane, Dr. Van Sangfreud prompted Vexler to begin searching the stable. Meanwhile, the doctor casually strolled between the stalls. His cane thumped the ground, punctuating his pace. Thump, step, thump, step. Dr. Van Sangfreud paused to examine the dull-eyed camel. Rud, rud, rud. The camel chewed noisily, oblivious to the events transpiring around him. The doctor frowned and moved on. He approached a horse that hunkered against the wall when the doctor patted her flanks. "Madam," the doctor addressed the whole expanse of the stable. "We have a lot in common, you and I. We both want to help nature's creatures. That's why I've been trying to get in touch with you. Trying and failing." The doctor scooped oats from a feed sack and offered them to the horse, who swung her head away. Vexler, however, stretched his lips and teeth toward the oats. He nickered with expectation until the doctor thwapped him with the cat-head cane. "Snap out of it," Dr. Van Sangfreud hissed. With a grunt, Vexler resumed his search for Madame Putresca. Dropping the grains, the doctor ushered himself around the stalls and cages. "I am sure you've seen my traps. I placed them all over the city, hoping I'd catch you at a good time." As he spoke, the doctor swooped here or craned his neck there, searching the many nooks, crannies, and shady corners. For a moment, he glared at the oblivious camel, still rudding. "Maybe if I'd had your address, I could have sent you an invitation. Without that, I was forced to bait my traps with cheese soaked in truth serum. Maybe that way I could extract your whereabouts from other rats, but alas, not all scientific efforts are rewarded." Under Gorgeous George's ear, Blister whispered,
"I was right. That cheese was laced."
Muck restrained Madame Putresca to keep her from cracking the doctor. Under her breath, she grumbled,
"He has been addling my opeRATives. I will be turning his bones to juicings." "You can do that as soon as we have a plan for getting out of here alive,"
Blister whispered. Putresca relented, and the 3 rats peeked out from under the ear flap. Just then, Yuck poked out from a feed sack, only enough to gesture a silent message at Putresca. Putresca signed something back. Although Blister and Muck did not know the opeRATives' sign language, they at least gathered that Putresca agreed with Yuck.
"What did she say?"
Blister asked.
"She is having an idea,"
Putresca answered. Meanwhile, Dr. Van Sangfreud had paused to admire the chimpanzees. The whole troop had climbed the walls and clung to the rafters. Their chains stretched tight. "Maybe my methods strike you as extreme, Madame Putresca. Desperate times require desperate measures. I need access to the animals in your rescue network. I need as many kinds of animal intelligence as possible if I am to improve upon the flawed design of mankind." Dr. Van Sangfreud waited for a response. "Rud, the camel supplied. "Why don't you come out, madam? Come back to my laboratory tonight. Then you could hear my plans in full detail. You would see how my efforts align with yours. I will make man one with the animal kingdom again. I can end all this brutish captivity, but I need your help." The doctor turned a full circle to survey the stalls. "No, you won't come out? Too bad." Vexler pulled his head out of a feed sack, cheeks bulging, teeth grinding on grain. He blew a happy snort from his nostrils. "Stop that! Spit it out!" The old doctor clubbed Vexler with his cane. Vexler whinnied and neighed. He spat and spat until a slobbery oat porridge freckled his beard. Yuck seized the moment to enact her idea. The feed sack where she hid hung high on a nail driven into a wooden post supporting the stable's roof. A very grain-dusted Yuck ascended that post and escaped through the patchwork slats. Dr. Van Sangfreud extracted a revolver from his coat pocket. Blister recognized it as the same gun the doctor used while stealing the electric generator from the train station. Vexler huddled, convinced he was the target. However, the doctor pressed the muzzle right between the camel's eyes. Rud, rud. The chewing stopped. If you or any rats with you interfere, I'll convert this furry, four-legged water tank into a tea table for my library. Vexler wheeled the handcart to the panther's cage. The panther tensed, but did not otherwise protest. Vexler flipped a switch on the generator, and the C bracket buzzed. Then the panther's cage began to shake. An invisible force yanked the cage off the ground. The metal bars stuck to the bracket, as if bound by a stupendous glue.
Magnetized,
Blister marveled, remembering the toys at Yana's house.
Electromagnetized,
Muck said with a nod. The cage clung crookedly until Vexler jerked it into alignment. Metal scraped metal until the top bars affixed to the top arm of the bracket. Throughout this process, the poor panther could do little more than be jostled. With the cage in place, Vexler flipped the switch in the opposite direction. The electric current swirling through the copper wires shifted. The bracket buzzed at a different pitch. The polarity of the bracket's magnetism reversed, causing the cage to float. Lastly, Vexler pulled a lever which triggered a mechanized stack of wood panels to slide out from under the bottom of the cart. The panels unfolded and unhinged themselves around the bracket and the floating cage. Just before all the panels clicked in place, the panther locked his emerald eyes on Blister, chilling the underside of the rat's ribs. Then the panels latched together, forming a box around the big cat. Freshly painted letters on the sides of the box advertised Blightley and Sons Night Removal. To any unsuspecting observer, Vexler and Dr. Van Sangfreud would have appeared to be in the waste transport business. Men who visited homes in the night to skim outdoor cesspools and cart away toilet matter. Vexler snorted, scraped his heel through the dirt, and pulled on the cart handle.
Creakety, creakety.
The wheels complained under the weight of panther and cage. Last chance, Madame Putresca, Dr. Van Sangfreud announced when Vexler was gone. He waited a moment, then said, What a pity! We could have achieved great things together.
Together?
Yeah, right, Blister scoffed.
As soon as you tell him where the caverns are, he'll zap you senseless. Exactly what I was thinking.
Putresca nodded. Good night, all. Sorry to steal and run. The doctor tipped his hat once more and departed. The cats eased out of their rigid postures and began to groom. Some licked their paws and wiped their faces. Others twisted and contorted to lick elsewhere. By appearing relaxed and distracted, the clever felines hoped to trick the rats out of hiding. The handcart's creaking faded into the distance.
Where's Yuck? Blister fidgeted. What's taking her so long? We gotta go after them. They're getting away.
Before Madame Putresca could reply, Gorgeous George opened his eyes.
They heard me,
he wheezed with delight. The cats inclined their curiosity at George. May I offer a word on cats and their habitual silence? Because cats are cats, the descendants of noble, stealthy predators, they inherited an innate tendency for silence. They never speak unless they think it absolutely necessary. Also, they have spent thousands of years mastering the haughty stare, and they delight in a disdainful, condescending hush. In the present situation, however, staring silently, smugly, at an aged elephant was hardly sufficient. "What did you say, big fella?" Tabby asked.
Huh?
George swung his large head around until he located the rabble of cats.
Kitties! Where did you come from, kitties?
The elephant extended his trunk and thumbed the tip at the tabby cat.
Come here, kitty, kitty, kitty. I love kitties. Come here, little kitty, kitty, kitty.
"Knock it off!" Tabby grimaced. He batted away the trunk every time it reached for him. The other cats prowled over and also took up the game of swiping at the elephant's trunk. Gorgeous George chuckled as he dangled his muscular snout like a string. As soon as a cat jumped for it, George yanked it away. "Look here," Muck whispered. He pointed to the fire wagon parked outside the stable where Yuck jumped on the lever that triggered the water pump. At last, the lever shifted. The pump came to life with a soft drubble, drubble, drubble that the cats did not notice over Gorgeous George's wheezy giggling. The flat, cursive hose plumped with water. The sealed nozzle dripped as if salivating. Yuck hoisted the brass nozzle and carried it to the open doorway. "Bad kitties," she proclaimed. "You didn't finish your baths." The cats spun, first in fright and then in savage aggression. They raced for Yuck, even as she twisted the nozzle. A watery rope lashed and lassoed the cats, the stalls, the cages, even Gorgeous George. The cats yowled as they darted away.
opeRATives, go, go, go!
Putresca shouted as she vaulted out from under the elephant's ear. The opeRATives bolted into action, picking the locks as fast as they could. The jaws of the locks released. Click, click, click. The stable stalls frenzied with leaps, gallops, chases, hops, and flaps. Once freed, many of the circus animals menaced the cats, chasing them away from the rats. Not understanding why any creature would want to antagonize a precious, adorable kitty, Gorgeous George hobbled through the melee, snatching the cats from harm. Above it all, chimpanzees dangled from the rafters, chucking horse dung bombs, at first at the cats, but then at anything, including each other. One chimp gabbered as he trapezed from the dangling light bulb. The chalky light smudged the stalls in erratic crisscrosses. Blister worked at the lock on the lion's cage. The name Cecil had been painted just above the keyhole. The new letters glopped over the smeared bones of older names. "Heads up!" Cecil the lion exclaimed. Blister glanced over his shoulder and saw Tabby charging towards him. Time turned to syrup. The cat missile ticked slowly through the air. Blister's pulse swelled larger than a wagon wheel. Then, inch by slow inch, Muck dashed in front of him. "Watch out!" The words of warning flashed across Blister's mind, but in the syrupy flow of time, they sludged down to his mouth. He had barely uttered "Wah!" when Muck squatted low, wriggled his generous hindquarters, and leapt up as the cat sailed over him, still aiming for Blister. On the way up, Muck managed to seize one of Tabby's front paws. On the way down, the rat somersaulted over, twisting the cat's paw, then his elbow, then his shoulder, and then finally his whole body. The twist veered Tabby off target. He and Muck crash-landed several feet away from the cage, and time sped up once more. "Muck!" Blister made a dash in Muck's direction, but Cecil stepped on his tail. "Get me out of here!"
"I have to help my friend!"
The words avalanched from Blister's mouth before he realized or understood what he said. Jumpin' Jiminy Kitty Litter Crumbs. Those are some hissed-off cats. And just in case any parents are listening, I sincerely apologize. I am appalled and shocked that my producers didn't bleep Blister when he said the F word. That kind of language is completely unforgivable in a one-for-one and none-for-all domain. Tune in next week to find out if Blister comes to his senses. Will he abandon Muck while Tabby attacks? Will he turn his back on the inevitable doom? Admit it, just then you thought I would make some insufferable cat pun, didn't you? You thought I was going to say, will he turn his back on the inevitable catastrophe? Well, shows what you know. Cat puns are where I draw the line. To be perfectly honest, cat puns bum me out. They're so particular. They bring neither whisk or reward. And even though we're all wondering what Dr. Van Sangfreud has in store for that panther, I refuse to literally stink up this podcast with anything less than hysterical content. Have you visited our online headquarters at blisterandmuck.com lately? Every week, you'll find insightful articles, fun videos, and excellent books related to the many topics that come up on this show. And you can use the contact form to tell me what you think will happen next. Or you can share your favorite horse or cat puns, and I'll share them on the show. Tap or click the orange subscribe button, and you'll always get the latest episode delivered to your email inbox. While you're at the website, you can check out the colorful selection of Blister and Muck shirts, face masks, and hats. Or, as I like to call them, paraphernalia. A portion of every purchase supports this show. Each item is printed right here in the Rocky Mountain town where I live. And when you open the shipping bag containing your tote bag or sweatshirt, you'll find a special thank you card with a link to a secret page at blisterandmuck.com. Enter the password on that thank you card, and you'll hear a special message from the entire Blister and Muck gang. Would you like Blister and Muck to visit your school? Ask your teacher oh so nicely to send an email to contact@blisterandmuck.com. I'm so happy to report that this show reaches hundreds of listeners across the country. That means many of you who tune in regularly have told someone you know to check out Blister and Muck. I am so grateful. Sharing this show with your friends is a fantastic way not just to support the podcast, but also to share the silliness and laughter, the relaxing time away from a computer screen, and all the pandemic stress we face day to day. Special thanks to composer Roland Rudzitis for serving up the Blister and Muck theme song. Additional music from Kevin MacLeod and Mon Plaisir. Orlab and K9 brought the cats. Chalice Well and Inspector 3 sprayed the water. Construct a Beat made the electric hum. Whenever I'm up at 2 a.m. putting together the latest episode, I smile when I think of all the inspiration and support I receive from my family, friends, and fans. One for one, and all for you.